And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Living Better podcast. My name is Matt. I'm your host. I'm with my wife, Jodi, and today we are with Celeste and her partner, Paul. And she is an erotic blueprint coach. She owns her website called lovewisecoaching.com. And we're just going to dive into a conversation and touch base on the erotic blueprint and our lives as couples. So let's do it. So welcome on the show, guys.
I'm going to jump in really quick and say I am an erotic blueprint coach, and Paul is also an erotic blueprint coach.
Oh, yeah. Even better. Two for one.
I thought that you knew that, but yeah, so we both are.
That's great.
Okay, amazing.
And do you work together? Do you work together on that website, or you have your own website, Paul?
Well, I think that's actually a great intro to just kind of the theme that we were talking about before we got on here, which is we're kind of figuring out our different approaches to this.
Okay.
And that we were kind of celebrating the fact that this may actually feel a little bit awkward because I come from a very kind of your typical male background, heteronormative, avoidant male kind of background and working my journey through that. And Celeste.
I come from a very different background, and I come from a background where I've been working in the healing arts for a long time. I've been doing Rolfing. I've been doing craniosacral therapy. I'm very much into energy work and hands-on work and healing work, more in a sort of, counseling or coaching role for a long time. So we just come from very different backgrounds, and we have different approaches and different strengths and different experiences.
Yeah. So in terms of working together, I feel like we will do work together.
Okay.
But I feel like we really have a different kind of angle and approach, which we'll get into. And that because we were trying to be what exactly is our theme going to be for this podcast?
And we've never done a podcast together. This is brand new for us.
Yeah.
So
this is awesome.
Separately, but this is so if there's some awkward just give us some space for that.
Hey, don't worry about it. Our listeners are really forgiving. So
yes.
We actually have that written down. Good. Celebrate differences and celebrate awkwardness.
Totally.
Yes.
I agree.
So let's talk a bit, if we roll it back to how did you get into this line of work? How long you've been together as partners? How did you find each other and grew into this journey?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question, but we're not gonna answer it right away.
Okay.
We're gonna tease you for you
right.
blueprints out there who like anticipation and space and tease.
That's good.
One of the ways we actually work together, this is something that we just generally in our lives like to infuse everything with, which is a practice of pleasure first.
Okay.
And we like to ask ourselves and everyone else, how can I make this moment even more pleasurable? And I think a lot of times we don't prioritize pleasure in our cultures, which is one of the major issues around sex and sexuality 100%. That we have. And so we're actually going to ask you to let us guide you through a pleasure first practice. So we can get more into our bodies, get out of our head, get more into our bodies.
Okay.
And just play with us.
She's already.
Play with us. Yeah.
I want to get in my body.
Yeah. And for anybody who's watching at any time in the future, please join in.
Yeah. And this is something that was, when we were going through the erotic blueprint courses, the very first thing that Jaiya had us do every time was to prioritize pleasure first, pleasure first, pleasure first. And you really didn't do anything until you were fully embodied into feeling good in your body. And there's just so many ways to do that. And we almost never take any moments to just say, you know what, let's reset. Let's take a breath. Let's
start with taking a breath, just to everyone.
All right.
Okay. Who's leading this pleasure first, by the way?
Well, I think I said I was going to try to.
You too. Yeah.
So
Go
yeah.
for it, Paul.
Paul's
We'll
gonna
follow your lead.
Okay. So I would like you to close your eyes and take a breath. And as you're taking a breath, I want you to feel into the first blueprint of energetic. So feel the space around you. Feel the room. Energetically feel the space of the room. Feel your breath moving in and out of you. Feel the space between you and the camera and our camera and us. Feel yourself taking the amount of space that feels comfortable to you in this moment, whatever that means to you. And on your next breath, I want you to take your dominant hand and just with a medium medium grip, I guess, massage your non-dominant hand in a way
Unless
that
you
feels
have a
good to you.
microphone.
Drop your microphone. We don't need microphones for this. So just give yourself a little massage that feels really good on your arm, on your shoulder.
Is it okay if I
Moan.
moan with a little bit of pleasure?
Use your voice. Get into your neck and shoulder. Just let that feel really good. And find spots, like scan your body for spots that need some kind of release. Breathe through them, massage them, let it go. Move a little bit left and right from your hips or from your shoulders, however, roll your shoulders, let anything out that's in there. Then take another deep breath and just kind of let all of that go. Make a sigh if you want. Just really let it fully out of your body. And just feel the weight of your body against your chair or the ground. We're on the ground, so. And final breath, I'm going to stop there. That's 2 of the blueprints. That's the energetic and the sensual, the ones that I kind of relate. I think the 2 of us relate the most with. And so I'm not going to get into sexual and kinky just yet. we'll get there.
When you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you for that. That was amazing.
What do you notice in your bodies now?
Oh my God, I just feel so much more relaxed.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, my energy is just so relaxed and I'm like ready to just dive the day or whatever would be the task next. I'm just super ready to dive into it. It's pretty amazing. No stress, nothing on my mind.
Good.
Like it just feels so good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And it only took 2 minutes, which is almost atrocious that we don't do that more often,
Yeah.
So do you guys do this practice every day? Like
I do this practice moment to moment sometimes.
Wow.
And
there's so many that you can
so
do.
many ways. I mean, we could have just led you in like a dance party, for example, or just any way that gets you from the thinking mind into a more embodied or sensual space. And that's a cornerstone of the work that we do and the way that we live our lives as a couple, and really a cornerstone of the blueprints is how do we stop intellectualizing around sex, and how do we let it be in our bodies in a different way so that we can have more joy and more pleasure and more play.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's almost like a hypnosis, you're getting into this trance of
Relax.
Sounds good. I want to stay there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can come back to that. We can get there. But yeah, in any moment, I think one of the big things that I've learned is to, do that quick body scan, and am I holding some tension? And can I give myself permission wherever I am, train station or whatever, to just take a second, even just like rub my neck, take a breath. You can always take a breath, right? You can always be mindful for 30 seconds before moving on to that next thing.
Definitely. So why do you guys think that in today's society we don't take enough time for pleasure? Why are we not focused on
But
we all love
big,
it, we all like
that's
it.
a big question.
Yeah.
This does bring up something that I think right at kindergarten, if they just taught you to take a breath, the difference that would make rippling out through your whole life, to just know in every moment to take a breath and just pause. You never have to move right into something. We're so kind of conditioned to just keep going, say something. Oh God, we're on a podcast now. I can't take a second.
No pausing, no empty space.
Take a breath. So I think just starting out, we keep this expectation that we can't pause, or that we don't have the habit of
doing it, because we were never taught it ever.
Yeah.
Very true. Good point.
And you know what?
That's a big, we could do a whole.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah, we can write a thesis on that.
Oh, 110%.
Well,
That's a very good point.
We can totally relate, because I think that's something we learned with like the 2020 pandemic. Everybody had to slow down. Everybody had to take more time. We were more at home. Like people would work from home. It's like the pace of life of go slowed down a bit. And even though it was like a hard year for everybody, it was like a transformative year for us to learn to slow down. And like you said, just taking a breath, taking a moment, sometimes just breathe and appreciate things for what they are.
Yeah.
Is something that we started doing. And I'm a yin yoga teacher, so I do a lot of yoga, and I have my YouTube channel too. So I do that, and I do it with her. And the first time that she did yoga with me and she took a moment to just be in that moment of holding positions and stuff. First, she had a hard time because she had never learned to really slow down and just hold a position and just be in her head. And then even she cried because she had like stored up emotions. And she started,
you're like inviting the space for something else to be there, right? Your emotions or
so it was like an emotional release.
In our case, like you're slowing down and inviting the space for something else to arise, which can be pleasure.
It can be, absolutely.
So I think that's a really good point that you guys mentioned that, because we're constantly in a society that's we have to strive, go. Like if we have a silence for too long, it becomes awkward, and stuff like that.
And then we'll just go back to what we said at the beginning, which is let's celebrate awkwardness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think those philosophies of just kind of flipping what you normally feel is normal. The theme that we kept coming back to thinking about doing a podcast together, so again, was celebrating differences. And how can we keep hanging things that we talk about on that concept? Because it was the biggest, I would say it was the biggest theme of our year. We were studying this during the pandemic. It was actually wonderful to have something to kind of fill the space. We studied and we practiced. We were stuck, you're stuck together. I think a lot of people in the pandemic were probably, we've read about it.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse went up, and the full range, I'm sure, arguments.
One or the other, right? It either connects you more because you spend more quality time, or you're more together, or you never knew how to deal with that, and it's new, and you're like, whoa, you're too much in my space.
Yeah. And we can say we had 0 arguments.
We had arguments and we had tools to navigate them.
Yes.
That's like.
Was it before or after sex?
Or
During.
Yeah, during is the most fun.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, but I think just going back to, sort of using the idea of celebrating differences and then sort of segueing that back into the blueprints is I think that's a huge, how would I say that? Well, I would say the blueprints helps give you the language to understand yourself and your partner so that you can actually celebrate. So you can understand the differences and celebrate those differences by honoring each other, by feeding each other, by being more playful, because you have like just so much more enriched understanding of yourself.
Yeah.
I think when I came into, so I found Jaiya through Esther Perel, who I am in love with, and her concepts. And I think when we went to their big event, I was thinking, yeah, and I know about eroticism. I'm a smart guy. I'm a cool guy. I know about these things. I know about sex. But what was really, really powerful was, and really moving, was seeing people get on stage, share their problems that they're having, and then within minutes, just those disconnections dissolving into connection because they quickly understood for the first time where their differences really are in a way that was playful and fun instead of we're different and that's got to be fixed. It's we're different and this can be fun. This can be, like you can take the space you need and we can make that fun. Space doesn't have to be, a negative. Space, you can play with space and it can be fun.
Yeah. So that's part of our story actually, is kind of like where we were prior to kind of coming into this like erotic blueprint world. And then getting into the space of understanding what these blueprints are and using them to be more empowered and more playful in our relationship. And I'd say we're playful, but we just were kind of getting into these conflict loops that we just couldn't really get out of. And it's because we didn't have this shared language where we could understand, oh, you're this way because you have these qualities in yourself. And I'm this way because I have these qualities in myself, whether it's like our attachment styles are different or our erotic blueprints are different. And so really learning and embodying those has been a huge like boost to the amount of play and pleasure that we have in our relationship now.
And would you guys be able to like expand on that to give us an example?
Yeah, I was gonna
personal, but people.
He's good at that. He's good
okay, yeah. Well, usually people when they listen to stuff like that, are like, okay, well, what are you talking about? For you
and
guys,
I also want to know like what are these blueprints, so we can also
yes, we'll dive into that.
Totally.
Explain it.
Yeah. So I'll pull all of that together real quick.
Okay.
I'll just set myself up for that. Thanks, so as an example, she is primarily the energetic type, and what that means is. If she first meets you, she needs some time and space to get to know you. If it's an intimate setting, there may be like you could probably say more about that specifically, but you get the energetic type is more like, I need a little bit of space. I need to get comfortable. I need to know you. I need to just feel good energetically before anything else can happen.
So you guys didn't meet on Tinder?
No, we met on OkCupid, actually.
That's another hilarious story. Actually.
Yes, that is. I thought that's actually where you were going to go.
I like to joke around. That's me.
Oh gosh. So then I'm going to stay on track. I actually gave Celeste a stop sign in case I get off track because I will talk. So I am I'm the sensual type. So what that means is I like, how I had massage, lighting. Incense, the right kind of music. And so if anything's going to really happen with me that I enjoy, you're going to have the right music playing, and you're going to have the atmosphere is going to be right. I want touch. I want smooth touch, and then I'm there. Then I'm locked in the zone. And then the other thing she mentioned was the attachment styles, which is huge right now, big trending topic. because it's so effective. I lean avoidant, and I have a whole thing about men and being the avoidant type. But she leans anxious, and at this point, we are both leaning more secure because of our work. So I want to say really quickly that attachment styles are not a death sentence. They're not a life sentence. It's you have these tendencies because you grew up this way and were kind of born into a certain environment. But they, through awareness and your own work, you become more secure. So between those differences, so more anxious type because of how she was brought up, more avoidant type because how I grew up, sensual type, energetic.
What are the attachments types? Sorry, if you can expand on that quickly.
Yeah, so really 3 basic ones: anxious, avoidant, and secure.
Okay.
And so it would take a while to get fully into that, but they kind of sound like what they are. So I am going to try to create actions that actually give me a little time to myself or break the relationship. Whereas an anxious person would introduce actions into the relationship to reduce distance and to pull. And so there's this push-pull if you have an anxious avoidant relationship. And a lot of people end up in that space. And without a lot of awareness of it and the agreement to work on it consciously, it can just spiral and loop. You're just pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. And he's running off and she's chasing. And it's not always he and she, but in our case, it would be that.
And
So
why would people do that?
Oh,
So my example is us, throughout.
Well, that's a perfect example because you guys can totally explain it well, because you've been in there. So.
Yeah, so we worked on it. So I think my example is just that we came from this, back to that big event. Jaiya gives these, path to passion events. And at that event, I really got to a point where I just wanted to run away. I did, we were arguing. We were in our
true story. We were
in our car,
in the car arguing,
hating each other, just like, ugh. And also super inspired by this playful method, this like celebration of differences. And so the example is we did it. Like we went through there was no choice but to do the work because we paid this money, took this course, and it's like we had to practice, and we were on with everyone every week and practicing with other people. And so we did the work, and I think it quickly became fun, and it quickly became like, oh, this is great.
What's fun about it is that it gives you actual, like, concrete tools that you can use. Like what we learned, I was describing like being in the car arguing during Path to Passion, which is hilarious, actually. I mean, in retrospect, it's hilarious. Always at the time, it's never hilarious when you're deep in conflict. But what we learned within that is we learned to actually really simple, concrete tools that like create empathy. They stop that loop. They help you take a breath. They help you slow down. They help you drop in. And then they also help you actually start to, like on that other layer, start to understand the other person's erotic language. And that's the blueprint framework itself. And if that's a good segue, I can talk about the 5 erotic blueprints.
Yes.
Like
so you guys took the courses to learn and become coaches, right?
Yeah.
Basically, and then it's a full program. So you were both in it at the same time, I assume, if that's what you're really talking.
Yeah.
And then
fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Oh, did you guys meet in the course, or were you guys together prior to this and you both decided as a couple to go and take the course together?
Yeah, we'd been dating. So now we've been dating for about 3.5 years. And so, we'd been dating for a couple of years at that point. And we went to the event together. We just sort of haphazardly got an invite, and we were like, we didn't know much about it. And we were like, hey, let's check this out. And I think Paul mentioned we were a little bit like, Oh, what are they going to teach us that we don't already know? We're a conscious couple. We are savvy. We're smart. We got our shit together,
Yeah.
And then, then of course we got schooled in the best way possible. So,
Yes, totally.
yeah.
So it was kind of a blessing for you both to do
A
this.
huge blessing. Blessing. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Really great. Very connective. I mean, it was just really a connective experience to go through together, especially like in the throes of quarantine during 2020. It was great. It was wonderful.
And we were surrounded by people like us going through the same stuff. And so and you're kind of paired up with different practice partners where you get to see what they're going through. And it's just, it's really connected. So back to you.
I love it.
You guys are cute.
Yeah. So should I explain the blueprint?
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
Like, I don't know how much
there's no set way to do it.
I don't know how much your viewers are already savvy about this.
Go for it.
Let's go through the 5 erotic blueprints. So I like to sort of like preface this as for those out in the audience who have heard about the 5 love languages, which is a fairly popular sort of framework of relational communication and understanding. I like to say that the erotic blueprints are a little bit like the 5 love languages, but they're for your erotic self, how you express yourself in a sexual way, how you give and receive, how you like to give and receive sexual and erotic energy. And so there's 5 different types. There is the energetic type, there's the sensual type, sexual, kinky, and shapeshifter. And like everything, everybody has a certain sort of like way that they lead. So they'll have like a dominant type that they are, with the others kind of like falling in a percentage after that. And so just a real quick and dirty rundown of each one. The energetic type, Paul was explaining, is my dominant type. And that type of person loves space, anticipation, tease. You really need to like take it slow with a person who has an energetic blueprint. And if you don't, then you'll probably send them into their shadow. So each type has a superpower and a shadow. And the shadow of the energetic is someone who shuts down if they get approached too quickly, whether it's sexually or just personally. At least that's true for me. They also we can be a little bit hierarchical in our thinking. Like, a lot of energetics really love practicing Tantra. And then they think, oh, it's this elevated sexuality. It's so spiritual. It's so much better than all this other, base sexuality. So you have, the superpower and the shadow there. Sensual type, Paul is a fantastic specimen of the sensual because they love the realm of the senses. They're experts in all the ambiance, all the textures, food, and then the just deep body sensations, hard sensual massage. And if you get sometimes, I don't think this happens to you, but the shadow for a sensual can be somebody who's stuck in their head and can't get into their body. They'll be distracted by the environment. And a lot of women who are sensuals feel like they can't drop into a space where they can like actually enjoy themselves because they're stuck in their head. They're stuck thinking about their day. They're stuck thinking about the to-do list, the kids, this, that, the other. And then for the sexual type is their strengths are, they are always ready to go and they're a lot of fun, 0 to 60. And they're, they can be very like orgasm focused, which is great. They love to like please their partner in that way. And the shadow of that is that sometimes they can kind of miss their partner's cues and get a little stuck in that rut of like, we got to just have like foreplay, orgasm, let's go.
Yeah, that's my type. I'm the same.
Is that your type?
Yeah, that's my type.
And so then we move into kinky. So kinky is basically anything that is in the realm of the taboo, and that's anything that's taboo for you. It doesn't have to be taboo for anyone else. But in that, there's a lot of creative play, a lot of just really interesting ways to approach sexuality, whether it's like sensation based, where you're using like whips and floggers and sharp things and hot things, or you're playing more in the realm of like BDSM and like psychological kink.
Yeah.
And the shadow there is a lot of shame, can be a lot of shame. Maybe even more shame than some of the other places, because we all have shame. this is a specific type of shame around like the weird things that you are into.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. And then shapeshifter. So shapeshifter is the ultimate creative lover that loves everything, wants everything, needs everything.
That's right.
And can be in their shadow when they feel like they have to stick themselves into a certain rut to please their lover, and they never get what they need in return.
Yeah,
so
that's me.
Well said. Oh, yeah.
Is that you?
Yes, it is.
She's the shapeshifter.
Yeah, totally.
Did you identify with the shadow?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm always for more pleasing, my partner than myself. I don't really care.
Sometimes I'm like, I want to please you. She's like, no, I want to please
first,
you. No, you. No,
and
you.
it's a battle.
I'm like,
It could be a
okay.
battle,
You do
and
get
it
into
has
arguments during sex, and it's around who's going to please each other.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Who's gonna have fun first?
So
She's silly like that.
sometimes,
Yeah, so that's the beauty of so having that framework, and that probably like having that bit of information about yourself. Maybe
Yeah,
even
for sure.
just that little kernel can be so empowering, because you probably thought something was wrong with you before, or you didn't have a way out or a way to something different.
Totally.
And this gives you like, oh, it's like a light bulb moment where you can be like, oh, other people have this too. It's not just me. There's something there's like a pathway I can lead out of the woods. That would be really cool, And so it's an empowering framework because of that.
No, it really is. I loved actually taking the quiz myself. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And then it's like, wow, there is actually something for me. Like, because sometimes I'm like, people are like, what? Like when I talk to my girlfriends, they're like, no, I want to get off first. And I'm like, really? I'm so the opposite. They're like, so then I'm like, oh, something wrong with me. And I have felt that way many times, like a little bit, oh, maybe something's done. It comes from my childhood of always being a people pleaser, and I think it does stem from it, but also sexually too. But I'm just happy that I'm not alone. And what I also think is amazing about it is that all different types of things can turn me on, and everything is kind of interesting to me too, which is great. You know what I mean? And I'm very open to try anything. So
it's funny because her dominant is a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Her second one's sexual. I'm sexual. Second one shapeshifter.
Oh, great.
That seems like it could work well. Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, I guess that can work well.
Yeah, there's certainly some blueprint types that have a little bit more challenge to work through. But that's
like if you, for example, if you get an energetic together with a sexual, the sexual is ready to jump into things. That's the exact opposite.
And the energetic needs time, tease, like little messages during the day, like, hey, I'm excited to see you tonight, and turn her on all day, and I'd be like, this is long. This is long.
But and also too, like, what about the sensual with a kink? Like, how would that work?
I think that's a good question. How do different blueprints can work together when they think they're sexually incompatible? Yeah, so it comes back to that idea of celebrating the differences and figuring out what works for you. And just sometimes you are actually in a different blueprint than your primary one too. So even a good lead-in question sometimes with us is like, I might come in and she'll very much not seem in the energetic space. And I'm like, hey, what blueprint are you feeling right now? And she might just say kinky. She might say sexual. She might say, you can be in any of them at any time. And then from there, how to please each other. So I think if I were to say what we do as an example is, if it doesn't feel like we're connecting, we can just quickly ask that question. And there's a few questions you can ask, but like, just where are you at? Like, what do you want right now? So being able to have words for it and just say, you know what, I'm feeling kinky right now. I'm feeling kinky sexual. Or I'm just feeling like I need a massage. And just go there. Just let that be okay. And let your partner be that for that moment. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but if you can find your system where you have those trade-offs, you have the trade-off moments, and you have the mutual pleasure moments where sometimes it's like, oh, I don't think we're going to get on the same page, and we don't have to, and that's okay. I'm going to just play decide
energetic
to,
massage guy. I'm gonna,
yeah,
you're
you're going to play her blueprint to get her really happy and turned on and satisfied to the extent of you not having exactly yours today. Let's say.
Yeah, and take joy in that, and just like one of the things you learn is that expansion into that space is such a fun journey. Um, like when I think about the energetic, this is something that inspired me. So Jaiya's partner Ian, he such a fun guy, he's such a great, I think, male role model. But something that he talked about where I left the event thinking like, I'm never doing that. That's dumb. That's not, I don't know. Is like expanding fully into this. If you're not an energetic type, I'm so much in my body that thinking about trying to use energy, or, you know what I mean? Like this was nothing that I had any kind of skill in, like, can I feel your energy with my hand from here? And I just got determined to either prove myself right or prove myself wrong. And so just got, like deeper into meditation, deeper into feeling, 1 inch out from my hand, 2 inches out from my hand, and I'm happy to say like that's a very comfortable space for me now that I can just expand right into. If she's just like, yeah, I just need kind of an energetic space and we want to, be there. It's all available to every person. And it's really fun to just play with it, just get playful with it, find your way to have fun with it. I forgot the question.
No worries.
Paul gets very, wait, where's that stop sign?
She has the stop sign, and she's just not using it.
I'm too nice.
No, but I think that this is great, and that's what we really like about doing this and doing this podcast with erotic blueprint coaches like you. It's something we discovered. It's a language, right? It's like the same way that if you want a good relationship, you have to communicate. Then when it comes to sex, people kind of just hope for the best and they don't communicate. And I think bringing that awareness to people that, hey, you can communicate about sex as much as you communicate about your relationship will get people on the same page to understand each other better. And the blueprint is great because it puts that language out there. It's accessible, it's easy, it makes sense. And for people to jump into that, are like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. We're different. Well, yeah, everybody's different. So when you understand and embrace, like you said, the differences, then it's easier to connect and to kind of give and take and work something out so that your relationship can be more meaningful inside and outside of the bedroom.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, I think I have so many things I could say about that. Yeah, it's a very empowering work way of being.
And it's fun.
And it's fun. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
We were talking about the things that we love. We love being playful, and something that I hate or that I dislike is like how serious all the healing is. And not that there aren't serious moments, because I'm I can get very deep and philosophical and serious about my healing, but I think there's a trap that people get into of like being too serious about their own healing journey, or they're, get stuck in always healing and not being healed, right? And not having fun in that healed state, and letting yourself kind of ground into a space where you're like, you know what, I still have like 50% to go, but I'm just going to enjoy where I'm at right now. I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to consider myself, it evolved to this point where I've gotten to, and it's fun. Like it can be fun and playful.
And when you talk about healing in what aspects? Your childhood, your traumas, your past experiences? What kind of healing?
Here we go. Diving in.
Well, here we go.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so. I think we have interests and specialties in different aspects of these healing realms based on who we are. He's in a cisgendered male body. I'm in a cisgendered female body.
Mhm.
I come from a very religious background, conservative religious background. So, so I've got, and I also came from a place of like suffering from a lot of anxiety and depression throughout most of my life. So my work is centered around embodiment, healing the nervous system, like being more in your body, and then also doing a lot of shadow work, and working specifically with women, because I have that very specific experience. So a lot of that stuff stems from childhood, and
Would you
and
care
those
to
are sort of
expand
like, yeah.
that a little bit? Would you care to expand a bit? Like I've read on your website a bit of your story.
Well, yeah, I came from a very conservative religious background.
Mhm.
I went to, not only did I just grow up in a conservative religious household, but I also went to a very kind of cultish Christian school up until I went to high school. And so I almost feel like it's like it goes without saying to say this, but like it's a very repressive upbringing, and it's very, you just learn that desire and sexuality is bad. You don't ever talk about it. And then also there's like a very specific way of being a female in that kind of culture. And I think that's religious, and also a bigger sort of like patriarchal thing. Like you are a people pleaser. You do what everybody else says. You forego your desires for somebody else. And that has ripple effects into your life. And so I got married to somebody I didn't even want to get married to, because I felt like I was getting to a certain age and that's what was expected of me. So I mean, that's just a terrible start. And I know I'm not alone in that. That happens.
Oh no, so many people feel the pressure.
Yeah, probably men too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And then also just, kind of having realizations or shadowy realizations around my sexuality, but not really wanting to own that. I mean, I didn't really like give myself permission to say who I am as a sexual being. Like I like more than just men, until I was like in my 40s. But I knew, like based on like how I was operating and all these things, like I knew that wasn't my truth. So those are the places that I've, I guess, stepped into my authenticity, my authentic self, my power in all of that. And that is basically how I help serve women in that capacity. That's my specific brand of the work, I guess. And then Paul has, what he's really passionate about too. Guy stuff. Dude.
No, but that's great, because you two as a couple bring two different perspectives. And sometimes, like for me, if I talk about certain stuff, maybe with Celeste, we won't really relate, because maybe from my male perspectives, it's totally different. So it's good that you guys have both, because let's say somebody, like one client goes to Celeste, she can be like, hey, I think my partner Paul can help you a little bit more with what you're addressing here as an issue, and vice versa. So I think this is like our couple right there. This is awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Our couple.
Power.
So I guess for you, Celeste, with your upbringing, and you were talking about depression, you hit a wall at a certain point in your life when you were like, I'm not happy with my life right now. I'm not happy in the marriage.
Well, I mean,
my sexuality.
A lot of times people will have that one moment where they're like, that's it. It's like their rock bottom moment. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm more of a, I had a long series of slow realizations over time. Okay. Now, the one time I did have something where I was like, you know what, this is definitely not working for me, so I finally got divorced, and then I got into another long-term relationship, and then we almost got married. And again, I didn't want to marry this person. And there was like this comical event in which we were going to announce that we were going to get married to my family at a Thanksgiving dinner. And it was like so chaotic that we didn't have the opportunity to, so we didn't ever do it. And then we broke up a few months later. So it was like, somehow the universe was on my side in that. Yeah. But that was a moment where I was like, okay, I keep doing this wrong. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to be intentionally single, and I'm going to figure something else out. And so I did all these, I explored different relationship styles. I explored dating just in a totally different way. And then I was single for 3 years throughout that exploration. And then I met this guy. And it was pretty great.
It was pretty great meeting me.
It was greater than everything else, hopefully.
No, and I feel like we met each other at a higher level than I had been operating at prior to that, because of this intentional journey. And then when we met, we actually have been able to up level like even more
together.
So that's kind of where I've been. And like the life journey, it is just a continuous journey of evolving and growing and deepening into all kinds of truths about myself and being and sharing that in the world instead of kind of
Well, that's amazing. And I think people really appreciate that, because that's how you connect with people, with stories and understanding that you're not alone in this world going through your issues, going through
100%.
either, like you said, depression or just everything that you feel somebody else feels in the world at some point in time. And when you can connect with these people and understand how they overcome those issues, what did they do, it helps you to speed up your own healing with that journey.
Absolutely.
So, I always say that to Jodi. It's like either you learn from people or you go through the experience. Sometimes you're too stubborn. You don't want to listen to people. You go through an experience, realize that everybody was right. Sometimes you listen and you save yourself the trouble of making the mistake. It speeds up, whatever.
Right. Like if you hadn't been so stubborn, you could have learned this lesson a lot quicker and saved yourself some trouble.
Exactly. And that's another reason people go to coaches, right? To get your insight, your tips, your tricks, your story, your tools to accelerate something you're trying to work on. Right?
Yeah.
So
and really to lead people into their own truths and give them permission to own those truths. I think that's a really valuable piece of coaching, because we don't have that in our culture. We're always trying to find the answer from outside. We always want someone else to give us permission to be ourselves. So that's like the real beauty and value of coaching, is like creating that container for that person to actually excavate that truth from within.
Yeah. And you were saying in your email, and I thought that was really great, that being a good lover is about 10% technique and 90% self-work. And I think that's totally awesome. Yeah.
And it's so true.
Mentioning that.
So true.
I think Jodi's looking off. I'm just so curious what she's thinking about when she said that. But
no, it's because because we have your email right here beside of all the points. And I was just looking, and it's just so true. All your points are just so valid,
Yeah. So what about you, Paul? That story when you meet Celeste, what was your story?
And also your journey behind that. What were your struggles? And maybe when you were a young little boy that you, let's go deep with your journey, Paul.
You're okay with
if that's okay. Yeah.
Let's take a breath. Let me sink into that. Because I do want to connect with a very specific thing here and talk about it.
Okay, perfect.
So you can edit out my space if you need to, but I'm gonna take a minute.
Yes, shake it off. I saw Jodi just shaking.
And again, just giving, the permission idea, giving permission to take space, take care of yourself when you need it. Okay.
This podcast is sponsored by.
We've been binge watching 30 Rock lately, and it's sponsored by Snapple. Sorry. Anyways, okay. After that big buildup, it's probably more buildup than delivery. But what I connect with, I think the most is the male journey of going it alone, figuring things out alone, and not having a safe space to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. I'm, all the typical vulnerable stuff. I'm feeling weak right now, or I'm feeling uninformed. I don't know how to be a good partner. No one ever taught me anything, and it was never safe to ask anyone. It was never informative to ask anyone. I could ask my buddies, but what are they going to say? They going to tell me their sexual escapade that they were proud of that probably didn't actually happen. My dad, who's an awesome person, and we have like a really great relationship now. As a boy, I think, like the biggest thing I remember is him just watching TV and occasionally being angry and that feeling like my fault. And so what felt safe to me was to go be by myself, to go be somewhere where I wasn't experiencing anger or being avoided. And so, that avoidant attachment style, I think is, we might see it more in men. I think I say that just because I see it more in my male friends than my female friends. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying that's the case. It's just that I feel that where I was coming from was this sort of avoidant space. If something bad would happen to me, or something kind of, traumatic or hurtful, I'm leaving the country, because I'm a traveler. And yeah, I love travel, but really I can look back on those times and see I was running. I was going somewhere to be away from the problem instead of facing the problem. And so I think I just identify with this lonely space of, like, are you like me? Are you like a man who grew up being avoidant, not having anyone to really share or learn from? I'm super lucky now because the men in my friend group, we hug, we tell each other we love each other. We take care of each other when we're sick. We take each other food. We talk about sex. We talk about love. We talk about the tribe that we're in and how to make sure that we are taking care of everyone in the group. And
that's awesome. Sounds like the military to me.
Yeah.
That's what it was in my case. It was exactly like that. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's not a men's group, but it's tribe. It's like we don't have anything structured, but we do talk. And so my journey when I met Celeste was I was in this space of figuring all that out better for myself because I had come out of a divorce. I had separated, and she was a great person, but me and her for a number of years towards the end of it, we weren't skilled. We weren't treating each other nice. I didn't treat her nice. She didn't treat me nice. I was likely more to blame. I was, trying to figure it out, but I wasn't figuring it out. And so when we met, I was just in a space of figuring me out, figuring all of that out. I was working on myself, but I didn't have all the answers. It's like back in the day, there was just like Tony Robbins or whatever. And now there's everything. But when I first started on my journey, I was like, I need a role model. Oh, Tony. And anyways, where's your stop sign? You're
so that's awesome. Keep on going. So then, totally interested.
So we met, and honestly, I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this, because this feels, you meet someone when, like had the divorce, had the separation, and then you meet someone kind of immediately that's like, this feels like we're gonna be something. And I was like, I don't want the first person I hang out with to be like someone that I'm going to end up with. I want to get out there a little bit. And she was dating someone else, and eventually we circled back. We were in each other's orbit for a long time, and then we really, I was always after her. Like, I went traveling, but I was always thinking back to her. And so I think once we connected, though, we kind of had this agreement. The way that I remember it is that we kind of agreed to give each other permission to call each other out on our BS.
Nice.
We wanted to do our own work.
Yeah.
We recognized the value of doing our own work on ourselves and being honest about it. And that's painful. It's so easy to talk about it now, but it was incredibly difficult to, when you're feeling angry and you're feeling like unresourced, the last thing you want to do is admit you're wrong or remember that you gave someone permission to call you out on your BS.
Or even practice those skills that you have been taught, that work, and you're just in this like,
you don't want to do it. But we did it. Like, we stuck to it. And I think our story is like, it was bumpy, but we stuck to the work. We did our work on ourselves, and it got better and better. And then I just think through experiencing those incremental steps of every time you own your own stuff, it's almost like something just releases in you, and you're like, okay, I don't play the victim in that anymore. I can let go of my, addiction to being the victim in that specific thing. And now I'm not, I can elevate above it. So I think this has been kind of an ongoing pattern.
Yeah.
Was any of that coherent?
Yes, that was awesome. But I think it's such a good point. Owning your bullshit, owning your problems, owning them is one step in the right direction. And a lot of people never get to own any of the stuff that, they have to work on. And that's why they stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the most important step of everything you just said there. That's like one big piece of insight for anybody out there. If you have something to work on, own it. Accept that it's not perfect, accept that you're not perfect, accept that you have struggles that you want to improve. And then from there, that's how you start climbing. In our case, that was our journey.
Mm-hmm.
So,
totally.
Yeah. So we can relate on a lot of things you said, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So then when it came to when you guys just first started dating and it became the sexual part, did you guys have your challenges in the beginning or the lack of communication of what your blueprints were and things like that? Or how long did that take for you guys to really, because it really seems to me your energy is very connected and it seems really amazing. But how long did it take for you guys to really get there?
I feel that we are compatible, blueprint wise. For myself, I've actually never dated anyone long term. Well, that's not true. No, I was about to say I've never really dated anybody that I wasn't blueprint compatible with. I'm going to think about my last long-term relationship, and I'm like, yeah, it just wasn't very satisfying. But we have connected. I feel like we connected pretty well, pretty immediately.
Yeah, I think the different stages for us were that we were pretty compatible, and that made it fun to keep working on it. And then, because I think that when we were going to commit to going to this event with, the blueprints, we were, like we said, we considered ourselves pretty savvy, good sex life. We were loving towards each other. We really didn't argue a lot, but when we did, it was pretty intense. But that felt normal. And I think we were pretty, well, in terms of sexual, we were pretty sexually compatible. But I think so how long did it take? So I think, I think we're just in such a good year now, really. Like you said, we've only been together 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Which,
here's how I would say,
when you consider the pandemic, that feels more like
4 years.
Yeah. 4 or 5 years.
The last year.
The last year was 4 years. So we've actually been together 7 years. If I can just jump in, I would say that, so we were I would say we were newbies in we're very compatible. We have a good sex life, blah, blah. But what happened with the blueprints is that it unlocked things in us, because I think, I personally have become much more embracing and open, just in terms of my fantasies, for example, or what actually turns me on and what I want to experience and what are my weird kinks. And being able to work with a framework like the blueprints, and then also have a willing partner, which I think is such a huge blessing. There are a lot of people out there that don't have a partner who's like into, like figuring all this stuff out as they are.
Yeah.
So this is a huge blessing that we have,
Yeah, just being willing
to do the work together and being excited about it. So I feel like it's taken me more from like a space of being an amateur into like a real like pro level, like
in a quick time, it was like, no, that was pretty good, and then boom.
Our erotic relating is so creative and so deep and so expressive, and I think we have that. It's unique, and part of the recipe for that was the work that we've done around eroticism, around the language of the blueprints, and that's Can
I add one to that?
Please.
And I would add clear. Something that I take for granted now is just how clear we are with each other. Whereas I think a lot of people struggle. I know I struggled in the past, and I think I see a lot of people struggle just saying what you want.
Yeah,
clearly.
Totally.
And expecting your partner to just do the things you want. And that I'm just speaking for myself here. So past me, expecting partner to do what I want, partner doesn't do it. I get grumpy that they didn't do it. And then that reinforces my negative story about why they didn't do it. They don't love me or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas now, and this is maybe, I think, for me, one of the hardest things that I had to learn and practice was, you know what I want right now? I want X and then Y, and I want it in this style. And then, but I'm open to a no, and I'm open to negotiation. And then we find that sweet spot. That for a lot of people, just to be able to come up to your partner middle of the day and say, hey, like 7:00 tonight, would you be willing to be in this headspace with this blueprint and do these things?
Get the floggers out.
Get the flogger out.
Yeah.
But just lightly drape it across me. I don't want to be hit.
Instead of,
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that actually kills the mood, like being that specific about your desires. But
so hot.
From my standpoint, it is a huge turn on, and it's so fun to be able to communicate like that with your partner. And, it provides the space of like anticipation and teasing, which obviously is the energetic. I love that. So and
I think some of that shutdown comes from feeling either like you can't say the exact thing, or because a lot of people say like, why do they say it shuts down? Because it's like it takes the magic out of it. Like they want it spontaneous and all that. But I feel spontaneous when I'm saying what I want. I'm exploring.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
It's like its own little sex moment, right? It's like, you know what I want? It's thrilling. It's like she might say no. She might reject me, right?
But I'll give it a try.
I'll give it a try. Sometimes, hey, if it works, sometimes, so for me, that's very thrilling to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's enough. It's like, all right, well, I don't even want to do it.
Yeah, I know. I've said it and that's enough.
Well, I think that's a good point, but I think a lot of it is conditioning from society. Society's not there yet in terms of embracing sexuality and just allowing people to express sexuality. Like me, in my case, for my upbringing, I had to be really secretive about sex. And I come from a religious background too, where my parents were like, oh, girls are no good, focus on school and sports, So I was already really shy when I hit my teenage years. And I was like, well, I'm kind of attracted to girls, but they're like aliens to me. I don't even know how to say hi, because all I had was like little male friends growing up. So, I think that this story for a lot of people is that we don't feel like we can be open about sexuality unless we feel safe. Like right now we're having this conversation with you. We feel really safe. We can talk about anything. But it's the fear of judgment too, I think. People
totally. But that's what I mean. Like right in the beginning, when you meet somebody, let's be honest here. Like you're probably so nervous to just have sex like with a new person.
Yeah.
And you're
then-
thinking to yourself, oh my God, is he going to think I'm sexy? Like all these things,
oh, yeah,
right?
for sure.
So is it healthy to have that conversation before even having sex with somebody new? Like asking them, what do you like? I don't know, but it's something that we've never talked about. But would it have
Most
made our
people
sex life
don't.
better? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I would say
Stop.
most people don't in the beginning.
they don't,
Right? They
but
hope,
then
like you say, they're like,
they hope they,
oh, she was
know,
amazing, or right? Or,
Yeah,
he was amazing, or no, or
such
Or-
an interesting dance.
that
Yeah.
conversation.
yeah.
So it's like, how you even supposed to know, So
Yeah. How do you know? But I think a lot of times we don't have the conversation because we aren't in touch with our desires, especially as, well, for me, like for a long time wasn't in touch with what I even wanted as a desire, because there was maybe shame around it,
Exactly.
or
Fear of judgment.
like, or as a nice, good Christian girl, you don't have those kinds of desires, or you never even speak about, you just let everyone else have whatever they want, but you don't have what you want. So you don't even know how to be in touch with that.
Yeah.
And so I think so many people are in that space that
yes,
that's what happens. You don't know how to be in touch with that. And you literally don't have the language to have those kinds of conversations beforehand.
And for our viewers, could you give, and even myself, like, could you give me some
that's good.
tips on how to be more in touch with yourself in order to have a better, could have a better sex life with your partner?
That's such a great question, and requires a moment, so I can be
some of your coaching skills to come out.
Well, I think what's fun is to kind of say what kind of bubbles up first, and I think I always come back to that that idea of taking a breath, take a moment, scan your body, and like, where do you feel pleasure right now? And what would you ask for right now to make that grow? Like, how do you expand that? And I think I'm kind of on the dating thing. Like, it felt like we were on a dating segment there, a dating segue.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
And for people dating, like, we know people dating and they go on dates, and it's fun kind of sharing our like what we've learned with them, and then seeing them come back and say, oh, I tried actually asking for what I wanted and setting a boundary, and it worked, and it was terrifying. And so that like moment of, it's like you tell a friend, and like, we're not coaching our friends, but like, why don't you just try saying what you want, throw one little thing out there, and then put a boundary out there, or say your yes. Like, if you have a yes, say your yes. If you have a request, give some request and see what happens. And it is a little dance, and it's a thrilling dance, and there's, depending on the two people, there's timing involved in terms of how much you want to share. But I think that we need to normalize asking for what you want and making that feel okay, because I think what's normalized now is like, oh, and then he asked for X, or she put up a boundary around Y, and all those things are informational. They can move things forward if it's okay to do them. That's my first.
That's great. That's asking for what you want. And if you don't even know what you want, say you're a woman who doesn't even know what you want, which is more familiar to me.
Yes.
I would start even more simple. Like, before you, like, forget going on dates and having that whole conversation.
Okay.
What do you want for yourself? What would bring me, like, you can ask the question in any moment in your life, what would bring me even more pleasure right now? Oh, I actually am really uncomfortable in my jeans. I'm just going to go put sweatpants on. Okay. What would bring me even more pleasure right now? And giving yourself permission to do the thing that gives you the pleasure. You're starting to tune into your own desires. And I think that the work for women starts with yourself first rather than in relationship to somebody else, simply because of the fact that we have been so conditioned to not just completely neglect what our own desires even are. And so I think what you're talking about in terms of like a dating and relating sort of method is amazing. And then like, if you're so out of touch with your own desires, I think that's the place where you start, is like, what do I want right now? What would make this pleasurable for me right now? What do I desire to have right now? Just on your own, before you
because if
start.
you don't know what you want, how can you
Right. So it's
translate
just,
that into
like
words for somebody else?
Yeah, it's like you're starting to get into a relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
where
good.
that's where you're starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
totally.
I feel like I have like 100 responses to this, and they're just queuing up in my head. And like,
Well, communication, right? Some people even like long-term relationships, 20, 30, 50 years, never even talked about what they wanted. And
Or
they're
what
like,
they like.
yeah, they're like, my God, what have you guys been doing for 50 years? Us
Yeah.
two figured this out in 3.5 years, or like whatever. But you know what
Not
I
bad.
mean?
Hey,
Not bad, not bad. Congrats, guys.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it's very, very important point. And if we talk about the stages of sexuality, that's something I was really interested about. Can you explain to us the different stages of sexuality and how to embrace them and move from one to the other?
Oh, you want me to talk about stages? I'm happy to.
yes.
Okay.
I think you're just better at describing those things than I am.
I'm good with
And
frameworks.
succinct.
Yes.
Go for
So if you think, I mean, we could say this about anything in life. Right? We are dynamic beings. I think we like to think that we want things to be static and one thing so we can have control. But anyway, that's just not how things work, including our sexuality. So there's going to be moments when you're feeling into a certain stage, and our sexuality is dynamic. It's fluid. So there's this model within the blueprints around what stage of sexuality are you in any given moment. And that can change from day to day. It can change. You can be in one stage for months, for years. But it starts with, oh gosh, now I'm going to blank.
Resting.
It's resting.
Healing.
There's a resting stage, a healing stage, a curious stage, an adventurous stage, and a transformative stage. They all have sort of hallmarks. But
Are
yeah,
they in order?
What's that? They're not in any order.
Not?
I mean, it's
Okay.
they're not in any order because with something that is dynamic, it can shift and you can go back, and you might think you're going backwards, but maybe what's happening is you're in a healing stage. You know, for example, like if you've given birth, like Jodi, you're pregnant. There's a high possibility you're going to feel like you're in a healing stage after you give birth, and aren't going to be in a sexual space.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to last forever. And also it could last for as long as it lasts.
I know.
And I think just like understanding and giving yourself permission to be in whatever stage you're in is another piece that's very empowering.
For any reason, you know, so if I just feel like I'm in a healing space, maybe I just had a bad day at work. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So
maybe I've just gone into kind of a cycle for a few days where I just feel bad about myself or something, you know, and that can be a healing state in general, right? And so these things can apply to anything. And so I might want to be in a curious or transformative space, but I'm just not there at the moment, but I know I'll get there.
Yeah.
And if I think the key here is let your partner be where they're at, right? Like if I was made to feel bad that I was not having sex while I'm in a healing space, that would keep me in a space where I don't, you know, now I'm choosing to not be in a sexual space because you didn't treat me well when I needed healing. You know, you made me feel bad that I was keeping sex away from you or something like that, right?
Yes.
And you know, and likewise, if you're feeling in a transformative space, I mean, you can just go anywhere with it. It can change hourly. You know, you could come home from work kind of, you know, stressed, but maybe you're going to a party and then suddenly you get in a very curious or very adventurous space because of a song, you know, and so it can change rapidly. But you do I think the idea is like you might be in a space for a little while, like you might be in a space for a period of your life where, you know what, I'm adventurous right now. I'm going to be going out and trying new things. I'm going to expand my portfolio of what I know.
Yeah, for example, like when I described like breaking up and being like, I'm just going to be single and figure that out. I was very much an adventurous phase.
Of course.
Like a serious adventurous phase. So curious is like a learning phase, but adventurous is more like going out and
doing it or
doing the things.
Yeah.
So I that was my lived experience of having this sort of like adventurous stage of sexuality.
Yeah. And transformative, just to put a kind of touch on that, is a little more spiritual, or kind of expansive beyond like, all the body and
using it for like personal growth or sexuality for personal or spiritual growth of some kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great because, like you were saying, it's a language, and knowing the stages, knowing the blueprints gives you the tools. Like, let's say I have a bad day, I can tell Jodi, I'm in a healing stage today. I had a bad day. I'm not really into having sex, and maybe she's like super like, let's get it on or something. And then being able to talk like that, then she'll understand better than just thinking I'm weird. I don't love her. I'm not attracted to her. For X, Y, Z reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like one could be like, she thinks I'm not attracted to her because she's pregnant or whatever, right? And it's just because I'm having a bad day,
Yeah.
So I think
you're connected, right? Like that's connective. Where using that language, now you're connected in a way, and it's also communicating that it can communicate that, hey, I feel like I might. I feel like I'm on the upswing of this healing thing, and maybe my energy will be different next week, and I can be more available to you. Not that there's any time frame, but just being able to say, like, oh, I'm coming out of this thing, and it feels great. I feel alive. I feel like this now, and connecting on that change too, on the transitions.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That all these tips and tricks would help so many couples around, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. And couples, and I think the thing that sometimes people don't really realize, like, yes, you can do this work when you're in a relationship, but you can also do this work when you're single, and it's equally empowering. And I think especially for a lot of women who's, are in that sort of like, I tend to forget who I am when I'm in a relationship. I am a people pleaser. It can be empowering to really like dive into that work on your own, so you can create that sort of very primary relationship with yourself in a way that is giving yourself permission and space that you haven't ever done before.
And from both of your experiences, do you think there's such thing as being sexually incompatible, or it's just people that haven't done that kind of work on both sides, either or, and they're struggling to meet in the middle?
I think what comes up for me when you say that is, when you have the language, you can decide that, right? Like you can say, this is the totality of the place I'm in right now. I'm an energetic, and I'm in a healing space, and here's how I want to connect with you. And these are what I need. This is what I need right now. Are you available for that? And I think taking the word incompatible out of it is, I think, helpful in a way, just to say it's all information. I'm informing you of how I can, how I can be a partner to you. And if that doesn't work for you, I want you to, this is just my view, I want you to find the way that you can express your happiness, express what you need to express with someone else. And so I think for me, incompatibility doesn't come into it anymore as much as I'm going to inform you, and let's make some healthy, fun decisions, healthy, fun decisions about that information. What would you add to that?
I would add, well, first I'm going to add my energetic blueprint is starting to feel filled up. I'm not a shapeshifter like y'all here,
Okay.
but I will answer this last question. And I would add to that, the sexual incompatibility almost feels like a trope in our popular culture. And that's because we look at the act of sex looking like one thing, which is basically what you would see on a movie.
Yeah.
Which is you have people ripping each other's clothes off. There's zero foreplay, penetration, orgasms at the same time. And then 30 seconds later, everybody's cuddling and very happy. That doesn't work for everybody.
Of course not.
That's very much a sexual blueprint way of portraying sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like one of the only things that we see in popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what has happened culturally is that we start to misinterpret, if we don't operate like that there must be something wrong and we just don't match up.
True.
Yeah. And so,
oh my God.
And so when you can get more information like you have with the work that we do, you can understand, oh, our sex life doesn't look like that because we're not wired like that. Like you might be, maybe one person in the relationship is wired that way,
like
the
that
other isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such a relief.
There's not enough movies where people move from a tantric meditation to beating each other, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You never,
Yeah.
So I think that, it is that idea. Sometimes there is incompatibility. I would never say like it's, either one or the other, but oftentimes I think what's happened is we have given sex this like very specific format that's just not true to life. And we've given it more importance and relevance than it actually has in people's lives.
Yeah. So you would say there's such thing as sexually incompatible, but you would need to really do the work first, try the blueprint, try to figure things out. You need
a lot more. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, before just saying.
Probably need a lot more information.
Before saying, okay, it's not going to work. Goodbye. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Like for an example, let's say I would throw at you guys, somebody is in a healing phase and is not really sexual versus the other person be wanting to be sexual and involved. And there's that disconnect sexually because that person's in a healing phase. And let's say it's been ongoing for a while. What would you do with people like that? Let's say as a couple, they love each other very well. But there's just
it's a question of, do those people, are they interested and curious about actually working through that in a different way
than what they currently know that doesn't work.
And it takes both,
and
right?
That it's okay that it is okay to move on. Sometimes the resolution that works best for everyone is that they part ways, and that is not a bad thing. And the information presented just helps that feel like a healthy decision instead of someone's wrong or everyone's wrong. Everyone's depressed about not being good enough or whatever. It really is just different states that you're in and different places that you're in.
Because would you say that probably staying in that stage or phase for so long might do more damages than actually helping, down the road, right?
I think there's other things to look at if you're staying in a stage you don't want to be in. I'll just throw that out there first, just from
this is just an example.
Just from a health standpoint, if you're stuck in a place you don't want to be, that's the key. If you're stuck somewhere you want to be, that's great. But like taking a healing approach if you are stuck somewhere. And maybe I misunderstood your question.
No, that's great. You're answering it perfectly well.
Okay.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to have you guys on the podcast.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, it was so fun.
So fun. Thank you so much.
Time flew by so quick, already an hour and a half, and I feel like we could keep on going.
Yes, totally.
Forever, because you guys are so awesome.
Yeah.
This is very fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Can we, if anyone watching or listening is interested in hanging out with us more, there's a couple of ways to do that. We have a Facebook group that we run. It's called Evolving Relationships. We'd love for you to join us. Okay. If you are interested in diving deeper, working with one of us, you can go to my website, lovewisecoaching.com, and there's It's a form where you can apply for a free consultation with me
Okay.
and or Paul. So unless there's a different way that you want people to contact you, I'm the boss.
She's the throughput.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and thank you so much. Thanks for your thoughtful questions and your presence and playing along with us in Pleasure
Of
First.
course.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
We love it. We're learning from
Yeah,
ourselves.
we
too,
are,
you know, like,
absolutely.
this is us learning and exchanging the information with the world
Absolutely.
for them to grab what they need or
Awesome.
want in that time being. So
Mhm.
if you would have just last tips for people in relationships trying to enhance their sex life, where would you start? Like just basic tips that our listeners can take away very shortly. You don't need to go
I
too
would
much
say
in
take
depth.
the erotic blueprint quiz.
Yes.
That just
Yeah.
gives you like the very first little teaser of introducing a new language into your life, so that you're not having the same conversation over and over. Like if you feel like you're having an argument about how much sex you're having or the type of sex you're having,
Yeah.
start having a new conversation, and you can do that by taking the blueprint quiz.
Mhm.
That'll be like your first little foray.
Yeah.
That's my quick tip.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you guys could put one word on the billboard for everyone to see, I like that one. What would you write? Like it could be a sentence or a word.
Ooh.
Everyone in the world sees that.
It's like about me or
Anything. It can be just a
word
tip, a thing. Like it could be like love yourself, like for instance, or something like that.
I feel like I always know the answer to that question until somebody asks me the question. And I'm like,
Well, my problem
Like-
is there's too many. This is my problem with everything. Too many things pop into my head and then I just shut down. But I was gonna
Throw
say
me one.
celebrate differences. Celebrate
Yes.
differences.
Totally.
Be playful
Yes.
and take care of yourself.
prioritize
Yeah.
pleasure. That would be mine.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's a good one. Prioritize pleasure.
Pleasure,
That's
for
something we
sure.
need to do more of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I'll put
Thank
all
you.
the details in the description for people to connect with you guys.
Wonderful.
It's been our pleasure. Seriously,
Yes.
we really appreciate you guys taking the time
Yes.
from Florida today to
Yeah.
Thank you.
get the snow at the back. We're stuck in this stuff.
Yes.
All
Happy
right.
holiday.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.